There's a specific type of loyalty that most people never experience because it's rare, unconditional, within certain boundaries, and incredibly valuable once you've earned it. The Sigma male doesn't give his loyalty easily or freely. He's naturally selective about who he invests in, and deeply cautious about forming close connections because he understands that loyalty is one of his most valuable resources, and squandering it on people who don't reciprocate or respect it is a costly mistake. But when he does decide someone has earned his loyalty through consistent demonstration of integrity, authenticity, and reciprocal commitment, that loyalty runs deeper than most people can comprehend. He'll go to extraordinary lengths for people he's loyal to, sacrifice personal interests for their benefit, defend them when they're not present, support them through difficulties without keeping score, and maintain that commitment even when it's inconvenient or costly. This loyalty isn't performative or transactional. It comes from a place of genuine care and commitment that's all the more powerful because it's given so rarely and selectively. However, this same loyalty has boundaries that most people don't recognize until they've crossed them. And what happens when you push a loyal Sigma male past those boundaries is something most people are completely unprepared for. There's no dramatic confrontation, no emotional explosion, no attempt to hurt you back or get revenge. What happens is far more final and in many ways more devastating than any form of retaliation could be. Understanding what happens when you violate the trust and loyalty of a Sigma male reveals something profound about how he operates, what he values, and why his friendship and commitment are worth protecting once you've earned them, because losing them isn't something you can undo or repair, no matter how much you might want to later. The first thing to understand is that the Sigma male operates from clearly defined boundaries that he never explicitly states, but absolutely will not compromise on. These boundaries typically center on a few non-negotiable principles: honesty, even when it's uncomfortable; respect for his autonomy and independence; reciprocity in effort and commitment; integrity in actions matching stated values; and basic human decency in how you treat others, particularly those who can't defend themselves. He doesn't announce these boundaries or give warnings about them because he expects that people worth being loyal to will naturally operate within these parameters. When you're authentic, honest, respectful, and reciprocal, you never encounter his boundaries because you're not approaching them. The boundaries only become visible when you violate them, and by the time you've realized you crossed a line, it's usually too late to uncross it. Most people are used to relationships where boundaries are negotiable, where violations lead to arguments and discussions and eventual forgiveness, where you can cross lines and then apologize your way back across them. The Sigma male's boundaries don't work this way. They're not negotiating positions or preferences that can be discussed and adjusted. They're fundamental principles that define who he's willing to maintain connection with. And once you've demonstrated through your actions that you don't respect those principles, there's no discussion that will change what your actions revealed about your character. When someone the Sigma male has been loyal to crosses one of these boundaries, the first thing that happens internally is a complete reassessment of everything he thought he knew about that person. He's not reacting emotionally in the moment, though he certainly feels the betrayal or disrespect deeply. Instead, he's analyzing what this boundary violation reveals about the person's actual character versus the character he believed they had. This is where his pattern recognition and observational skills come into devastating play. He's going back through the entire history of the relationship looking for signs he missed, inconsistencies he dismissed, red flags he gave the benefit of the doubt, times when similar behavior was present but less obvious. He's updating his entire mental model of who this person is based on new information that contradicts his previous assessment. This process is often remarkably fast because he's simply applying rigorous analysis to a situation where most people would be stuck in emotional reaction. Within hours or days at most, he's completed this reassessment and arrived at a conclusion about whether this boundary violation was an aberration from someone who's fundamentally trustworthy having a bad moment, or whether it revealed something essential about their character that he either missed or chose to overlook before. If the assessment concludes that the violation revealed fundamental character flaws or values incompatibility that can't be overlooked, what happens next is the most distinctive and final aspect of how the Sigma male handles being pushed too far. He doesn't explode in anger, doesn't seek revenge, doesn't try to hurt you back, doesn't badmouth you to others, and doesn't create drama. What he does is far simpler and far more permanent. He cuts you out of his life completely and permanently with no negotiation, no second chances, and no path back. This isn't done in anger or as punishment. It's done as a rational decision based on updated information about who you are and whether you're someone he wants in his life. The emotional tone is more sadness and disappointment than rage. The sadness of losing what he thought was a valuable connection, and the disappointment of being wrong about someone he invested loyalty in. But emotions don't change the decision, because the decision isn't emotional. It's based on the logical conclusion that you've demonstrated through actions that you're not aligned with his values, and maintaining connection with you would require compromising his principles or accepting treatment that violates his boundaries. The execution of this cutting off is characteristically efficient and non-dramatic. There's often no confrontation or explanation unless you directly ask, and even then, the explanation is brief and factual rather than emotional. He simply stops initiating contact, stops responding to your attempts at contact, removes you from his life in practical ways like social media connections or shared activities, and moves forward as if you no longer exist in his world. To observers, and even to the person being cut off, this can seem cold or harsh, especially because there's often no obvious dramatic catalyst. From the outside, it looks like he just suddenly decided to end a relationship for no clear reason. What people don't see is the internal process that led to this point, the boundary that was crossed, the reassessment that was done, the conclusion that was reached. They only see the result, which is complete removal of someone from his life with no apparent anger or desire for revenge, just finality. This cutting off is particularly devastating to the person on the receiving end for several reasons. First, they usually don't fully understand what they did wrong or why it was serious enough to warrant this permanent ending. The Sigma male isn't interested in explaining at length or helping them understand, because that would require energy and engagement. He's no longer willing to invest in someone he's decided doesn't belong in his inner circle. He's already moved on mentally, even if the relationship only just ended practically. Second, there's no path back. With most people, if you violate their trust or hurt them, you can apologize, make amends, demonstrate change, and gradually rebuild the relationship. With the Sigma male, once you're cut off, that's permanent. Your apologies fall on deaf ears, not because he's holding a grudge, but because he's already processed what happened, learned what he needed to learn from it, and closed that chapter. Apologies don't change what your actions revealed about your character, so they're irrelevant to his decision. Third, they usually only realize the value of what they lost after it's gone. The Sigma male's loyalty, while he was giving it, might have seemed unremarkable because he doesn't make a big show of it. Only after it's withdrawn do people recognize how rare and valuable it was, how few people in their life would do what he did, how much his presence and support actually meant, even though it was quiet and understated. The permanence of this cutting off stems from how the Sigma male thinks about relationships and trust. For him, trust isn't something that can be broken and rebuilt. It's more like glass. Once shattered, You might glue the pieces back together, but it will never be the same as it was before. It will always have cracks and weak points where it broke. He'd rather simply discard the broken glass and either live without it or eventually find new glass that's intact, rather than trying to maintain a relationship with someone he can never fully trust again. This isn't about being unforgiving or holding grudges. It's about being realistic that certain violations reveal fundamental incompatibilities that can't be wished away or apologized away. If someone is capable of lying to him about something important, that capacity doesn't disappear because they apologize. If someone is willing to betray his trust when it serves their interest, they'll be willing to do it again when circumstances align. If someone disrespects his boundaries when it's convenient for them, they'll do it again. The Sigma male would rather be alone than maintain connections with people he can't trust. So cutting them off isn't a loss from his perspective. It's removing something that was actually costing him more than it was providing. What makes this even more impactful is how little warning people usually get before they cross the final line. The Sigma male is extremely patient and tolerant of small mistakes, misunderstandings, and human imperfection. He doesn't expect perfection from people he's loyal to, and he's forgiving of minor infractions because he understands everyone has flaws and makes mistakes. This tolerance can create a false sense of security where people think they know where his limits are based on what he's tolerated so far, but they're dramatically underestimating how far those limits actually extend. He'll tolerate 100 small things that annoy or disappoint him without saying anything, maintaining the relationship because the value outweighs the costs. But there are certain violations that aren't on the same spectrum as small annoyances. They're category-different betrayals of fundamental principles, and crossing one of those lines doesn't benefit from the tolerance he's shown for lesser issues. People often don't realize there's a difference between him tolerating your lateness or flakiness, which are annoying but not character revealing, and discovering you lied about something important or betrayed confidence or violated his trust in a fundamental way, which reveals something essential about your character that makes continued connection incompatible with his values. The Sigma male's response to being pushed too far is also notable for what it lacks compared to how most people respond to betrayal or boundary violation. There's no public drama or calling out. He's not interested in making you look bad to others or damaging your reputation. He simply removes you from his life and says nothing about why to people who don't need to know. If mutual friends ask why you're no longer connected, he gives minimal information and doesn't try to turn people against you. This isn't out of lingering loyalty to you. It's because getting into the details would require ongoing mental and emotional engagement with someone he's already decided to remove from his life. And that engagement itself would violate his boundary of not wasting energy on people who don't deserve it. There's no revenge plotting or attempts to hurt you back. Revenge requires ongoing connection and emotional investment in harming someone, and he's not willing to give you that continued space in his mental and emotional life. The fact that you're cut off and he's moved on with no attempt to harm you isn't mercy or forgiveness, it's indifference. You simply no longer matter enough to warrant either positive or negative energy. There's also no emotional volatility or oscillation. Some people, when deeply hurt or betrayed, go through cycles of anger, sadness, attempts to reconcile, renewed anger, and general emotional chaos around the loss. The Sigma male processes the emotion, makes his decision, and that's the end of the internal drama. He might feel sad about losing what he thought was a valuable connection. He might feel disappointed in his own judgment for trusting someone who turned out not to deserve it. But these emotions don't create ongoing turmoil or indecision about what to do. The decision is made based on principles and updated information about your character, and emotions are processed separately from that decision. This emotional regulation means there's no window where you might catch him in a vulnerable moment and talk your way back in. There's no cycling between wanting to reconnect and wanting distance that creates opportunities for reconciliation. There's just the steady state of you being permanently removed from his life with no fluctuation in that decision. For people who've been cut off by a Sigma male after pushing him too far, there's often a gradual dawning realization of what they lost that becomes more painful over time. In the immediate aftermath, they might feel angry that he cut them off, defensive about whatever they did, or dismissive of the importance of the relationship. As time passes and they encounter situations where they need the kind of loyalty and support he provided, they start to recognize what they had. They realize that most people in their life are far more conditional in their support, more selfish in their behavior, more performative in their friendship. They recognize that the loyalty he gave, while he was giving it, was extraordinary in its depth and reliability. They might try to reach out, to apologize, to explain, to rebuild what was lost. These attempts invariably fail because the Sigma male has already moved on completely. He's not waiting for your apology or hoping for reconciliation. He's already processed what happened, extracted whatever lessons were available, and invested his energy into other people and pursuits that better align with his values and deserve his commitment. Understanding what happens when you push a loyal Sigma male too far should serve as clear warning about the value of earning and maintaining his loyalty once you have it. His loyalty is rare because he's genuinely selective about who receives it. It's deep because when he commits to someone, that commitment is total within his boundaries. It's valuable because it's reliable and unconditional, as long as you operate within basic principles of honesty, respect, and reciprocity. But it's also final when withdrawn, because he doesn't believe in maintaining broken relationships or hoping people will change into someone different than who they've proven themselves to be. If you're fortunate enough to have earned the loyalty of a Sigma male, recognize what you have and treat it with the respect it deserves. Don't take his patience for unlimited tolerance. Don't mistake his quiet loyalty for weakness or assume he needs you more than you need him. Don't violate basic principles of honesty, respect, and integrity and expect that charm or apology will fix what your actions revealed. The loyalty of a Sigma male is one of the most valuable things you can earn in any relationship, professional or personal. But losing it is permanent. When he cuts you off, there's no going back, no second chances, no reconciliation. He simply moves forward as if you never existed in his inner circle. And that finality is something you only truly understand after you've experienced it, when it's far too late to do anything about it, except learn from it for future relationships with other people, because that particular door is closed forever.